Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Joining me on the phones this morning, it's GOP political strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
Well, thanks again for joining us in 2018. And we start off, I don't know how you feel today after the one of the most historic speeches ever last night at the Golden Globes from presidential candidate Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, and I put this on Twitter, and it got quite a reaction. I didn't watch the Golden Globes. I just don't. I watched hockey, and I was enjoying my Sunday night with my wife. So I did catch some of Oprah's speech because it was on Twitter. And look, she's an impressive person in a lot of ways. I'm not convinced at the end of the day she's going to end the very nice life she has and put herself forward as a political candidate. But it's clear that Democrats are searching for a celebrity who can perhaps take on Trump in 2020. That's several lifetimes in American politics away. We have to get through the midterms, see what happens on the Russia inquiry, see how the economy is doing, see what happens with North Korea. There's a lot ahead of us before we get to 2020. But look, for a number of Hollywood celebrities last night, they certainly enjoyed Oprah's speech, and she is an inspirational figure. She's had definitely an inspirational story if you know much about her life. But look, they can waste time thinking about 2020 presidential campaign on the Democratic side. There's 24 Democrats actively working to think about running for the nomination. They're going to have a bigger field next time than the Republicans had last time, probably.
Yeah. Well, let's look ahead to the midterms, and it's getting underway. People are talking about the midterm elections, and one story that I kept seeing last week was this idea that Democrats don't have a lot to run on other than being anti-Trump, and that some Democrats are fearing they don't have a coherent message other than we're not Trump. Is that something you're seeing a lot of from the left?
Well, I don't know that I'm seeing a lot of that kind of self-awareness, but I do think that that's a real issue. What is the Democratic agenda? I guess it's single-payer health care, it's free college, it's abortion anywhere, anytime, any place. It's those kinds of issues, I guess, and the Democratic Party certainly has moved pretty far to the left in the last 5 or 10 years. Certainly as much as the Republican Party has moved to the right, and probably more so. It just doesn't get much attention. But look, this is an issue, and look, as long as Trump is politically weak in terms of his approval rating, if he remains in the mid-30s, being anti-Trump may be enough. I mean, we remember the very poor midterm elections that George W. Bush had, particularly in 2006, where his numbers were basically about where Trump's are now, and being anti-Bush and anti-Iraq war was enough in 2006 for Democrats. So it is important for Trump to improve his political standing this year. I think they're going to try to do some things in a bipartisan way, whether that be infrastructure, whether they try to do something in a bipartisan way on health care. There's a range of issues they're going to work on. Obviously, they're going to try to get this DACA deadline with some border security addressed here in the next few weeks. So, but look, Trump does need to improve his position, but it is not clear to me what the Democratic Party is going to run on. And one of the really underreported stories, I think, right now, Chad, is that the Democratic primaries are going to be pretty ugly. Everybody's talking about, Republican civil war, but the Democratic primaries are going to be pretty ugly. In a lot of these states and all these districts, you have Bernie-aligned and Elizabeth Warren-aligned far-left candidates running against some mainstream Democrats. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the party on the Democratic side works through some of that. The Republican Party has certainly had its own challenges with that in the past.
Well, and with tax reform, we all thought that, well, I say we, on the right side, we all thought that if tax reform got through, it would be a huge win for the Republicans. I don't even know if Republicans were counting on this much good news this quickly after the tax reform passed, where even today, I just saw a tweet about it, that Visa is going to start, they're going to increase their employee matching on 401ks. They're going to do some other investing. And every company that is doing extra investing or giving bonuses, they're all crediting tax reform. That's got to be a huge defeat for the Democrats.
Yeah, that's of course a really going to be a big factor in the midterms. The Republicans took all their chips, put them in the middle, and placed them on tax reform. And look, Democrats in the media did a good job of killing the perception of the bill as it was passing. If we look at the public opinion polling, the bill was pretty unpopular. in the end, the polling from 2017 is not going to matter. What's going to matter is whether people see their lives getting better because of the tax reform bill. And we're only a month in at this point. I mean, the tax tables haven't even been updated yet. The withholding amounts won't be updated until February. But starting in February, people are going to start seeing more money in their take-home pay, and that's going to be very important. And then, of course, you're going to see higher GDP growth. Just a question of how much higher GDP growth by the second and certainly by the third quarter. So, yes, tax reform is a huge part of this, and I'm coming to the view that not only is tax reform unlikely to be a political anchor on Republicans, but in fact that Democratic opposition to it may end up being something that will be difficult for many Democrats to defend, particularly those Senate Democrats who are running in states that Trump won in November. There's 10 of them who are running in states that Trump won, 5 of whom are running in states that Trump won with 54% or more, Montana, West Virginia, Indiana, North Dakota, those states. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, we're going to have to see what the numbers look like and how people's lives are affected. But so far, yes, I think it is having an effect, but we haven't seen it fully work its way through the economy yet.
Matt, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the book that everyone's talking about, Fire and Fury. It sold out just about everywhere. They moved it up to Friday to start selling to jump on the wave that is out there. With all of these political books that come out about a president inside so-and-so's White House, you almost have to take it with a grain of salt. There are going to be some stories that are real, some that are not real. With this book, it seems like that's even more so the case. How does this book have any impact, if it has any impact, on the presidency moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, and I'm about 60 or so pages in myself. It's something like 300 pages long. But look, I think the single most important development so far is the divide between Trump and Bannon. That appears to really be impassable going forward. Now, he doesn't have a way of bringing back in people he banishes, but this is going to take a while if Bannon comes back at all. And I think that is important. I mean, I think Bannon was very good at stoking the 35% of the country that was very strongly behind Trump, but that's not enough. It's not enough to win the midterms. It's not enough to win re-election. He's got to get back up into the low to mid-40s to have a fighting chance. And so I think that was important. Obviously, there's been a lot of attention on his, quote, mental acuity and the 25th Amendment, and that's what the left is now trying to focus on. And I think it probably plays into Trump's insecurity. You've seen him respond to it. He's obviously taken it very personally. Most people, when they're called crazy, do take it personally. But my hope is the White House can get back to talking about their agenda. Obviously, he met with the congressional leadership over the weekend. They're talking about what they're trying to achieve this year. It's going to be very difficult this year, given the political environment, the fact that it's a re-election year for a lot of members of Congress. But look, the book is a distraction. It's going to continue to get attention for another week or so, but I think we're going to move on after that.
Very good. Matt, tell folks about your podcast and also about the Must Read Texas newsletter.
Yeah, Mac on Politics is the name of the podcast. We're 62 episodes in, 83 five-star reviews. We've had senators, congressmen, ambassadors, journalists, you name it. We've had them on there. You can check it out on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and on the web at maconpolitics.com. And I do a morning newsletter for Texas called Must Read Texas. You can visit that website, mustreadtexas.com. Gets into your inbox by 8 or 8:30 every weekday morning. We've got 3,000 people across Texas that receive that news briefing.
Very good, Matt. Appreciate your time, and we'll visit with you next week.
Thanks, Chad. Take care.
Have a good one.